you know, you pointed out that John responded this, and
Yeah.
then this owner responded this back.
I just call it.
The
You guys- Okay, I'd like to call to order the City of Camarillo Planning Commission, the regular meeting for December 3rd of 2019. Mr. Secretary, you please take roll.
Commissioner Espinoza,
Here.
Commissioner Talmadge,
Here.
Commissioner Vandermeulen,
here,
Vice Chair Murphy,
Here.
and Chairman Edsel.
Here. And then let's please stand for the flag salute, and Mr. Talmadge will lead us in it.
Please follow after me. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, the next item on tonight's agenda is to approve the minutes from our past meeting of November 12th. Are there any additions or corrections? And if not, I'd entertain a motion to,
I'll move that we approve the minutes from the last meeting of November 12th.
I'll second.
okay, it's been approved by Ms. Vandermeulen and seconded by Mr. Talmadge. Please vote. And that passes 5-0. And then moving on to number 5 on tonight's agenda, this is the time for members of the public to speak on an item that's not on tonight's agenda. Is there anybody present that would like to speak on a non-agenda item? Seeing nobody come forward, we'll close the public comment. And then we move on to item number 6, which is our CUP 99M for the Pleasant Valley Historical Society. And that apparently wasn't ready to go forward tonight, so it's not going to be heard tonight. It'll be continued to a date to be determined that will be notified later. It'll be renoticed again? Is that? Okay, thank you. Okay, then we move to item number 7, which is the SUP 22M for St. John Seminary. And we have a staff report.
Thank you, Chairman Edsel. John Novi will be giving this presentation.
Thank you.
Chairman Edsel, members of the Planning Commission, SUP 22M2 is a modification to a special use permit for St. John Seminary to construct a workshop and water tank located at 5012 Upland Road. Here you can see the project site. To the east and west are residential projects. To the north is Ventura County and agriculture, and to the south is open space. You can see here is the seminary property. Back in 2016, an approval was granted to construct 281 senior housing units to the east side of the project. As part of that approval, the existing undergraduate school and workshop that supported the school was demolished, as well as a 750,000-gallon water tank that was also in support of the school and the surrounding agriculture on the property. As you can see here, this is an updated aerial photograph showing some of the grading of that 281-unit project. And you can see the project location of where the new workshop building is going to be located. And here's a closer-up picture showing it's going to be along the access road that goes around the property from the west to the north. The proposed workshop is approximately 5,500 square feet. The new water tank is approximately 64,000 gallons. The new water tank is going to be to support the agriculture that is remaining on the property that is surrounding the new workshop building. And the workshop is going to be part workshop and part storage. You can see on the floor plan here, the 2 storage areas are for the seminary and for the students and faculty of the school. And then there's 2 workshop rooms in the building. The building is designed in a Spanish architecture style. It's going to have some white stucco siding, tile roof, and tile accents around the windows. The water tank is approximately 16.5 feet tall. The color is going to be that superior sand that's identified in the middle of the slide there. This project was subject to an initial study. The initial study found 4 potential areas of impacts that are potentially significant, but with mitigation, those potentially significant impacts can be mitigated down to less than significant. The 4 areas of concern that the initial study identified were for nesting birds, for archaeological impacts, paleontological impacts, and air quality impacts during construction. There is a mitigated negative declaration that's being proposed for adoption as part of this approval as well. That mitigated negative declaration does have a mitigation monitoring plan that identifies the mitigation measures that will take those potentially significant impacts and reduce them to a less than significant impact. It's recommended that the Planning Commission approve a resolution adopting the mitigated negative declaration 2019-27 and the attached mitigation monitoring plan, and adopt a resolution approving the modification to special use permit 22. The action of the Planning Commission is final unless an appeal is filed within 10 days of the date of their action. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff?
I have one quick question. All of these negative, or the 4 items you covered to mitigate, were any of those items experienced during the housing construction project currently, as far as discovery of artifacts or dust issues, anything of that nature?
I'm not aware of any impacts from the housing development that would impact this site or be subject to this site. The initial study and the MND are localized to this project and this site. The impacts such as air quality is kind of a standard that goes along with most construction projects for dust, for exhaust from construction equipment. The occupants of this workshop are already employed by the seminary. So they've been on site. There's no additional traffic being generated, so there's no more transportation. There's no more exhaust that would have been seen that hasn't already been captured by the project. So there's not a lot of impacts that are outside of this project. It's all just localized review.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions, Mr. Murphy?
Yes, I have a couple. And it has to do with the nesting mitigation measures. Will the construction remove any of the eucalyptus trees along the edge of the parcel there, or is it just the citrus trees that are involved?
My understanding is just the citrus trees on the project site. But
All right.
the mitigation measure does identify that trees of a certain size can potentially be nesting locations for migratory birds. And if you get within a certain distance of those, they could disrupt the birds. So there's restrictions on months that you can do the construction. It's September through January are the months where you don't have to do any special studies to see if there are migratory birds. But if the construction commences from February to the end of August, they have to hire a biologist to do a survey of any of the trees that they'll be getting close to or possibly disturbing, to ensure that there are not nesting birds. And if there are measures in the mitigation monitoring plan that identify how they're supposed to address that to avoid disrupting the birds.
All right. So the eucalyptus trees within the project vicinity could be involved in that review. Is that correct? During construction and during this sensitive periods.
That's correct.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Talmadge.
Oh, it's just a follow-on question to the previous about looking at the trees on site. Eucalyptus trees are known to be habitat on occasion for migrating monarch butterflies. Is there any evidence that there have been butterflies hanging in the trees, in the eucalyptus trees? They usually go to groves, but is there any evidence of monarchs?
That I don't know. It wasn't evaluated as part of the initial study.
Okay. Will they be looking at that during construction?
I don't. They will. Yeah.
I have lots of monarchs in my yard, and so I'm just curious if they happen to make it over there. It isn't that far, and if they use those eucalyptus trees as a nesting area of sort. So.
Yeah. It's my understanding they're not going to be removing any of the eucalyptus.
Yeah. Okay.
The mitigation for the migratory birds is if you're in a certain distance of the tree itself, it can be disruptive enough to impact the birds. So if there are groves of the butterflies there, I don't believe that they're going to be disturbing them because they're not going to be removing the trees.
Not related question, but in the analysis in the initial study, there was really nothing noted in geotechnical or considerations, yet there's a lot of cut and fill, and it is already on the side of a hill. Were there any concerns expressed or found that should be mitigated?
The initial study did not identify any areas of concern in that respect. However, if you do have more specific questions, the project's civil engineer is in attendance and might be able to answer some more technical questions based specifically on the site.
I don't know if we should go into that now or later. Or
Yeah,
let the
once we open the public hearing, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, because you'll have a chance to
Yeah, I'll do that.
ask questions afterwards, too. You know, the thing, I don't know if I should bring up this one now. You know, we had one letter, or wait till the public hearing. We had a letter from a neighbor. Yeah, well, wait till the public hearing and then enter it in the evidence. Okay. So
Yeah,
we'll
go
go
ahead.
ahead and open the public testimony. Is someone from the applicant like to come forward and speak? I have a 3-speaker card, so I'm not sure who.
Chairman, Commissioners, my name's John Vandervelde with Shea Homes. We're the applicant. Again, this is a replacement, 2 replacement facilities for the seminary for things that got demolished in order for our project to go forward. So we're I have the architect here and the civil engineer, so we're just really here to answer any questions. So,
Okay. Is there any questions that you guys have of the
All right,
applicant?
I'll address the question to the engineer.
Okay.
In your investigation, did you look at any of the geotechnical considerations in the hillside, not only within the site, but in the immediate vicinity?
So we have a geotechnical engineer on the project who has reviewed the site. We do have a 100-foot setback from the slope, where you'll see on our civil engineering plans before the building is there. And we also have a 200-foot setback that takes care of any settlement foundation issues. So we are inside, the building's inside the 200-foot, outside the 100-foot. So the structural engineer is looking at any special foundation requirements for any settlement in that area. We're approximately 70 feet from the eucalyptus trees or so before our grading starts, to kind of maybe give you some perspective there. And all the trees that we're pulling out is the avocado trees that is what currently planted there, a young area there. And then as far as the kind of the grading and stuff, we've taken into consideration the geotechnical recommendations that we have on the site. We are doing approximately 2,000 cubic yards of cut and about 500 cubic yards of fill. So there's going to be some export that will be taken over to the rest of the development that's going on for the residential portion. So it's staying on site or close to it. And then the over-excavation and recompactions that we have in there is taking care of mitigating anything geotechnically that we need to for the foundations and stability for the tank and for the building.
You know, one thing I forgot to ask when you came up, if you would just state your name for the
sorry.
record. Yeah.
There we go. My name is Glenn Pace. I'm a civil engineer with Encompass Consultant Group.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I have a question for you, Glenn.
See if I can answer for you, Tom.
So there's this letter, and it is, I guess, a bit late, and so I don't know if you folks have had a chance to review this, in particular the geotech, but it makes mention of a collapse of the Arroyo Las Posas adjacent to the site. Now, I understand that the Arroyo is, you know, a couple hundred feet off of the site, but has your geotech had an opportunity to review this letter from Placo LLC, and it makes mention of a collapse. Doesn't say how big or the scale or any of that.
So I couldn't speak to see if our geotechnical engineer has reviewed that. Or I don't know that, I haven't seen that letter yet, so I don't know if he has seen that from that perspective, but I do know that they have, between the residential development and this site, have looked at that whole northern edge for stability and concerns, and that's why we have our 100-foot setback and things. So I believe that's all taken into consideration, but I couldn't speak to the specifics of that particular letter.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Espinosa.
Just a quick question on the water tank itself. It's considerably smaller than what was there prior to. So is that going to be storing treated water from the Camarosa system?
No. So and we talked about this a little bit earlier. So what it is, a much smaller tank, less than 10% of what the previous size was. So the previous tank had two functions. It served as the fire water storage, fire suppression for the seminary, and it also stored the irrigation use for a much larger agricultural production operation there. So what has gone on now is that tank has been removed, and a smaller tank is what's proposed. That's approximately 64,000 gallons, and that is now strictly for irrigation. It's only connected to the seminary's agricultural well, and is just for the irrigation of the crops that remain on the seminary after the residential development's completed. So that's why it's smaller. And to take care of the fire suppression, we now have a direct connection to the Camarosa system. So their storage is in their system, and so that's, we think, a more reliable and a better approach, and that's why it's much smaller.
Right. Got it. Thank you.
No, I got most of mine answered, so.
Okay.
I have one follow-up
Yes,
question.
Mr. Tillman.
One question for you, Mr. Pace. The soils that you're actually excavating and then reusing, is it of suitable quality? I noticed that there were a number of borings done, and you had clay, and you had silt, and you had sand, and a number of other things. Is that suitable?
The geotechnical recommendations is that we can reuse the soil that's on site as long as it's treated correctly. So over excavated, recompacted, moisture, get to the right optimum moisture. And then similar to what's happening on site with the residential development is if they come into any areas of concern, then they blend the soils, or if need be, can bring in other soils to make it so that it is competent and meets the recommendations that they have in the geotechnical report. But as of right now, the report states that the on-site material is acceptable for engineered fill.
Okay, so there's not going to be any movement of earth products off-site from the area of the seminary or the Shea Homes development. Everything will be used within that boundary.
That is the expectation, yes. Everything will be used for the residential where some additional material can be used there.
Okay.
Great, thank you. And I also have a blue card from Mark DeCiso, is the architect for the project. Just if there's any questions for the architect? Okay, thank you. And is there anybody else that would like to speak on this project that's here tonight? Seeing none, we'll close the public testimony, and then staff have any comments before we get into the architectural review committee report?
No further comments.
Okay, so we'll go on to the architectural review. Are you given that, Mr. Talmadge, or?
Yes, the architectural committee met prior to this meeting. We discussed the project with the project architect, engineer, and representative from Shea Homes. And we had some minor questions, but no real issues. We thought the building was well designed and will fit well and blend in with the campus. And we recommend approval.
Great, thank you. And then at this time, should on the record, maybe I should mention on the record, we had the letter from the neighbor, Esper Peterson, and I know we got a copy of that tonight, and there was a response from John Novi that addressed his concern, but that was part of the record, won't it? The written?
Yes, we'll include that as part of the record.
Okay,
under
great.
our
Thank you.
Public comment.
Then we go on to commission discussion and recommendations. Any comments? Want to start down there, Beverly?
In looking over the plans and looking how it fits with the existing seminary properties and even with what will be going in with the residential, I think it's probably one of the nicest workshops around. And I just wanted to note that on where it's labeled residential and faculty, they explained that that would have some storage lockers in that area for the students and the faculty to use. So it's got the workshops for all of their equipment and what they do. So I think it looks really nice and will serve the purpose, and I like it.
Mr. Espinosa?
Yeah, I really had no concerns other than a couple of questions I had that were answered sufficiently. So,
How about you, Mr. Murphy? Any further comment?
It looks like a good location for these facilities. Nice looking building. I wish it was open to the general public so I could come and work there, but looks great.
Thank you. Mr. Talmadge?
Nothing further, thank you.
Okay, I think we'll call for a resolution.
So this will be the first of two resolutions. Resolution number PC 2019-12, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Camarillo approving mitigated negative declaration number 2019-27 for SUP-22M2.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we waive full reading of the resolution and go on to approval.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Talmadge. Do you have a
I'll second.
Second by Beverly. Please vote. And that passes 5-0 on that first resolution.
The second resolution for this item is resolution number PC 2019-13, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Camarillo approving a request by Shea Homes to modify an existing special use permit for construction of a 5,500 square foot workshop and water tank in the rural exclusive 5-acre minimum lot size RE 5-acre zone. on the St. John Seminary Graduate School property located at 5012 Upland Road, further described as SUP-22M2.
Move that we waive further reading and vote to adopt.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Mr. Murphy to waive further reading and vote for adoption, and seconded by Beverly. Please vote. And that passes 5-0. Thank you. So we move right on to item number 8 on tonight's public hearing, the CUP for the Camarillo Moose Lodge and Family Center. And I believe Carlos is doing the presentation on that.
Thank you, Chairman Etzel and members of the Planning Commission. An application has been received from Camarillo Moose and Family Center requesting approval of a conditional use permit, CUP 398, to establish a 4,000 square foot private lodge with a Type 51 alcoholic beverage control ABC license for the sale of alcoholic beverages to members and guests only for on-site consumption in an existing multi-tenant industrial complex. Additionally, the applicant has requested a modification to Industrial Plan Development Permit IPD 143M1 for a 10% parking reduction. The 2.69 acre site is located at 480 Constitution Avenue within the light manufacturing M1 zone, and is occupied by 2 industrial buildings totaling 38,788 square feet. The Planning Commission originally approved the multi-tenant industrial buildings on July 5th, 1983, under Industrial Plan Development Permit IPD 143. The subject site is bordered on the north by a residential apartment complex in the RPD 30 dwelling units per acre zone, to the south and west by multi-tenant industrial uses in the M1 zone, to the east by a recreational vehicle parking lot in the RPD 5 dwelling units per acre zone. The Camarillo General Plan Land Use Map designates the property as industrial. The General Plan Circulation element identifies Constitution Avenue as an industrial street and Pleasant Valley Road to the south as a primary arterial street. The proposed private lodge is permitted in the M1 zone, subject to the approval of a conditional use permit. On this slide, we can see the front elevation of the building, and the red box area shows the proposed location of the Moose Lodge. Access to the project site is provided by 2 shared driveways on Constitution Avenue, along here and here. The existing buildings provide complete circulation with driving aisles along the front, rear, and side of the buildings. Here on the back, on the front of the building, and also on the side. The 2 buildings are approximately 38,788 square feet. The proposed Moose Lodge is within the red box area, and it's approximately 4,000 square feet. There are a total of 97 parking spaces within the site. The request is to use an existing industrial unit of approximately 4,000 square feet. The proposal includes interior tenant improvements to accommodate the use that include a bar, dining area, a kitchen, storage, office space, and restrooms. Minor improvements to accessible parking spaces and ramps are proposed to comply with the ADA standards. The facility will be used as social gatherings, board meetings, community service, special events, and local community service charities. The number of members at the location will range between 20 to 40 people per meeting. The hours of operation for the proposed private lodge will be Monday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Friday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., Saturday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. The modification for IPD 143 is proposing a 10% reduction in the required parking for the complex. With the approval of the 10% parking reduction, the project will comply with the city's off-street parking regulation. which will require 88 on-site parking stalls to be provided for the overall uses within the industrial complex, and 97 parking stalls are provided, creating a surplus of 9 parking stalls. Staff has reviewed the proposed project for consistency with the applicable goals and policies of the city's general plan and the development standards set forth in the zoning ordinance, and finds that the proposed private lodge will be compatible with the surrounding uses. There are no sensitive uses or receptors in the area that will be negatively affected the proposed lodge, and the proposed use will be conducted entirely within the interior of the building. The project is conditioned to maintain and operate in such manner as to produce no objectionable odors or noise outside of its walls, and adequately served by private parking lot and public utilities. Additionally, the industrial plan development will be consistent with the land use designation, as it proposed no changes to the industrial use, and it will comply with the development standards in the M1 zone, as it will provide adequate parking, lot coverage, and setback requirements. Staff is recommending that the private lodge be limited to off-sale alcohol beverages for consumptions on-site within the facility in accordance with ABC regulations, that there will be no loitering in the parking lot areas, and the access to the alcohol at this facility will be for members and guests only, and will not be open to the general public. The project was reviewed in accordance with CEQA and CEQA guidelines, and was determined to be categorically exempt under Class 1 existing facilities. In conclusion, staff recommends approval of CUP 398 and IPD 143M1, subject to the attached conditions of approval. The action of the Planning Commission is final within 10 days of the date of their action. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Carlos?
No, not from me.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to confirm my understanding that the Camarillo Police Department has been contacted in regards to this ABC transfer. It's just a transfer of the license from one part of town to another. Is that correct?
That is correct. The police department was able to review this proposal, and they, in fact, gave us some conditions of approval, which are included in on item A, page 18, condition number 29 to 37.
Right.
And it was just a transfer of the ABC license.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I had a question. You know, I think there's plenty of parking and everything, but when you do a 10% parking reduction, what's the rationale on that? Is it just that the parking requirements are less than that what the original ordinance was, or?
Well, originally, with the proposal, it actually requires 98 parking spaces. It only provides 97 on site. And that was the rationale of reducing the amount of parking spaces by 10% to be able to meet the parking requirements.
Yeah, but does it, by reducing it, has anybody looked at the parking lot? Is that going to have an impact, or is there plenty of parking?
Yeah, I looked at the parking lot, and it looks pretty empty. But, according to code, we just have to go according to what we have in our, regulations in our code.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I thought was kind of interesting, I don't know, just on the ABC license, and I don't think we're involved in it, but it was kind of interesting that they said the California Department of Alcohol and Beverage Control recommends no more than 11 within the census tract, and they actually have 33. So if they recommend more than 11, how do you end up with 33? Is it just they take them a case by case? Is that how?
Yeah,
I'm not opposed to it.
I actually have an exhibit that I wanted to show you guys. This is the city of Camarillo, showing all the census tracts within the city of Camarillo. Census tract 5600 is the one that this application has been applied for, and it's everything that is on the south of the 101 freeway. So it's a big long stretch, and all the licenses that are included on there mainly are on Ventura Boulevard.
Oh, it's in that same census tract, huh? Okay.
And as you can see on the little star, that's the one where the Camarillo Moose was before, which is in a different census tract within the Camarillo Ponderosa Shopping Center. And the red star is showing the new location.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, if there's no more questions for staff, I'll open the public testimony. Oh, I'm
One
sorry,
question.
Mr. Talmadge.
Was there any communication between staff and any of the neighbors, the adjacent building uses with regard to this particular proposed project?
We did notify the people within 600 feet from the property, and as well, we posted it on the city's website and as well on City Hall. But that I recall, nobody called and had any
No,
concerns.
so there was no response?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll open the public testimony, and I have 2 blue cards, and they're here to answer questions, but would any of the applicants like to come forward and state your name on the record? We have Richard Simpson or Ken Pete. Just you're available for questions. Does commissioners have any questions for any of the applicants? No?
I have a question. Why is it that you're moving?
Yeah, if one of you would come up and state your name for the record, yeah.
Hi, I'm Ken Pete. Quite frankly, we got priced out. We couldn't afford it.
Oh, in your existing location?
Yeah.
Okay.
'Cause that's a retail center. This actually seems like a pretty good location for you out there in Constitution. Are any of the other buildings full now with tenants?
They're pretty vacant.
Are they?
The people right next to us had just moved out. And the other tenant in the same building has like 4 or 5 employees.
So it seemed like there'll be plenty of parking, you guys feel? Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Mr.
Like on one of your busiest days that you might have at the lodge, what we normally expect the number of occupants to be?
Maybe 50
Okay, and then
max.
and where you're at now, it was about that level as well?
A little less. We've lost some members.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
Beverly?
When I'm looking at the plans, it looks like most of this remodeling inside is going into the front section, and you still have the back section that's labeled warehouse or such that's not being touched right now.
That's correct.
Do you have any future plans for that?
Yes, we do. But that's a second phase. It'll be a hall.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, great, thank you. Anybody else that wants to speak on this item? Okay, we'll close the public testimony and open it up to commissioner comments. Start down at this end this time. Gene, do you have any?
I'm still thinking.
Okay. How about you, Mr. Murphy?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Mr. Espinosa?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Carlos was covering thanks for that illustration about the census tract map, because I've had that same question, because we had a couple of other items that have come before us regarding that number exceeding the threshold recommended number by ABC, and whether or not that was, geography related as far as the area, or is just some flat number that they're using as a benchmark, and when that was going to become a concern, at what point, other than the police saying maybe there's too much crime now being generated in this particular area, or is there a number that you might reach where you start to say, wait a minute, maybe we need to pause here and find out if we're allowing too many licenses in one particular tract.
Yes, I'm not sure exactly how the ABC calculates the desired or recommended amount. I know it's based on population, but I'm sure there's some other formula on that. But for each request that we receive, the police department's included in reviewing that along with community development staff. And they're able to weigh in on any concerns or, possible concerns that they may have and being able to address them.
Okay.
Anything else?
I think my only concern is, even though it does meet all the requirements for the parking, is if the adjoining spaces do get occupied and filled, it doesn't look like there's a lot of extra parking there if they really needed it. So I think To me, it's a little bit of a concern, even though it does meet all the requirements.
Well, I saw that even with the reduction of 10% parking, you're really one parking lot short from being the capacity, so maybe, in my opinion, that's not too big of a concern, but, yeah, Mr. Talmadge?
Yes, I'm done thinking. I do have a question, a general question. The plans indicate this large, quote, storage area, and Commissioner Vandermeulen addressed the question of what's going to happen with that in the future, and the answer was, well, we're working on a later phase. So my question is that going to come back before the Planning Commission for the second phase of their work, or is it just going to be approved at some other level?
When they come back to resubmit the application to for tenant improvements, we will have to do a modification to the conditional use permit, and more than likely we'll have to come back to the Planning Commission, depending on the percentage that they're increasing on the square footage for the assembly area.
Yeah, and then if I could just kind of add to that, and then at that time, we can look at doing another parking analysis, and then at that, we can look at really drilling down and looking at hours of operation and when they're going to use this, whatever future use for their hall. You know, if they're just going to be using it in the evening, we'll look at the other businesses that are operating in that area and see if they're open at that same time, so we could have some shared parking there. So that right now, they meet the basic requirements for parking. But when they do go in for that second phase, we'll have to do a more detailed, more creative analysis of the parking. So.
Thank you.
Related question. I've been to functions in the past at the Moose Lodge, the existing one, and it was typically a birthday party or something like that, they either, I don't know if a person was a member of the Moose Lodge or a contracted or something, but it's been very crowded, and my concern is this big open storage area that suddenly it becomes being used for part of the party room. And we're not approving that use yet. And so I'm concerned about, is the nose of the camel under the tent here or what? So I'm concerned if the applicant is going to follow what we say here tonight, that when they decide that they want to come forward with a revised proposal for use of that space, that's exactly appropriate and would like to see that. But I'm concerned about that big open space just sitting there and someone saying, gee, that's a pretty good idea. I'll throw a few tables over there and we'll just use it for the next party or something. So it's just a concern I have.
Okay, any other comments? I think we're ready for a call for resolution.
All right, the resolution number PC 2019-14, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Camarillo approving a conditional use permit and modification to an industrial plan development permit requested by the Camarillo Moose and Family Center to authorize an establishment of a lodge within an existing 4,000 square foot space of a multi-tenant industrial building and a 10% reduction in required parking within the city's light manufacturing M1 zone located at 480 Constitution Avenue, further described as CUP 398 and IPD 143 M1.
I'd like to make a motion to waive further reading and move to approve the resolution.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Mr. Espinosa, seconded by Mr. Murphy. Please vote. And that passes 5-0. Thank you. So then we'll move on to item number 9 on tonight's agenda, which is the director's report.
So the only item I have under this, under the director's report is we're anticipating a special planning commission meeting for December 17th. So that'll be noticed and you guys will receive an agenda packet for that.
Okay, great, thank you. Any commissioner comments?
No.
Okay, we're
Thank you.
adjourned.